Hi, in this video, we're going to review how to make a mailing list out of an area that we want to target, like farming and neighborhood, for example. We're going to use CRS Tax Data here inside of MLS. This is a tool that we're used to using to look up information on a single property, say when we're working with a buyer perhaps, but they also have a really good prospecting tool for, again, farming and neighborhood. The example we're going to use is Carolina Bay in West Ashley, just because it throws some nuances in here that are good to walk through just in case whenever you try to use it, it throws you some hiccups. So as we know, Carolina Bay is over here in the corner of West Ashley, but I'm going to zoom out some to make sure we can see what's going to happen. So for starters, we select the county. We're going to leave it as Charleston County. It'll probably default to that for you. We can search by owner name, address, and subdivision. So we want to search by Carolina Bay. And pay attention to what's on the screen here. It's asking, are we looking for the owner's name? No, we're not. Keep scrolling down. Are we looking for the street address? No. We're looking for subdivision. There we go. That's what we're interested in. Are we searching for something that starts with Carolina Bay, contingent, or just Carolina Bay? Well, see, if we select that, we're going to ignore all these other phases that for whatever reason in MLS, they separated out to separate subdivision neighborhoods. So let's do contains Carolina Bay. That should give us everything inside of Carolina Bay. But see what happened. There's a couple that popped up over here. I'm going to assume that could be Carolina Park that included. And so some agent entered the wrong neighborhood for that. So for that reason, we're going to also use the mapping tool. We're going to do draw, and I'm going to pick to do a circle. You can draw polygons, rectangles, especially if you're in an area such as James Island that might not have defined subdivisions, or maybe the subdivisions are so small you want to get a bigger area. You can skip the whole subdivision search and you'd say draw a circle in the area concentric around where you want to get addresses. So I'm going to do a circle. I'm going to click over here. And it's going to ask us, do we want to include everything in that area or exclude everything in that area? So I'm going to do include. And that way it's going to ignore everything that was showing over in Mount Pleasant. So here, clearly it jumped us down to Carolina Bay. But this is all 1,700 records of addresses it has inside of Carolina Bay. That's one super expensive mailing, so we probably want to make it a little more cost effective for us than that. So let's see, boundaries. We're not going to do by zip code, that's too broad. We're not going to do by school zone, which that could be a cool one though, depending on what kind of mailer you want to do. MLS listing, that's an important one to check. Remove all active listings, because we definitely don't want to waste money mailing flyers to somebody who is already actively in MLS. And before I hit update, again, that number right now is 1,716. We hit update. And it just knocked out a few. So there's only a few active listings inside of Carolina Bay. Let's see. Owner type. Again, depending on the kind of mail you want to send out, if you're only looking for perhaps out-of-state owners or investor owners that don't actually live in the property, that's when you might use owner type, but we're going to disregard that. Ownership duration. That's probably one of the more important ones because generally, like the hot market we have right now, somebody living in the house for 6 months already has equity. But generally, when you're going to do farming, you're going to aim for people who have already been in their home for a little while and already built up equity over years, not this crazy short amount of time that we have right now. So I'm going to drag this out, drag the first button over to 50 plus years. And I'm going to say, let's aim for people who have been in the home for at least 4 years. Because we know right now, people who have been in the home at least 4 years, they probably have some good equity built up. And that knocked us down to 953. So this is becoming a more realistic number. And that's a really good way to fine tune it. Say you don't want to quite spend that much. Well, let's just aim for people who've been in their home a little bit longer. That brings us down to 573. So again, that's a good way to fine tune the search right there. I'm going to leave it back at 4 though. Property type, you don't have to worry too much about because this includes commercial stuff as well. But again, when we're already inside of a residential neighborhood, that's covered. Recent sales, some of this might seem overlapping, but nonetheless, it's worth doing this part. Let's remove all sales from the last 18 months. It may not change that number. And in this case, it didn't, but I have seen times where that's changed that number. So again, it's trying to make sure that you're not wasting money sending flyers to somebody who just moved, just bought, or what have you. Last sale date. So you could kind of ignore this ownership duration and recent sales and instead just filter on when the last sale date was. Pick a date from, say, 4 years ago to on into the past. A couple different ways to skin the cat here. And let's see, that's all the things we're going to aim to update over here. But let me see if I can actually move my face out of the way. There we go, I can. So depending on what you want to put in the mailer, what you're trying to advertise to somebody, you can use all these different type of filters over here. Year built, especially if you've got a mix of old and new construction homes, that would be something you could, especially if you want to market handyman special type stuff, if you want to aim to market to people selling an older home or a flip home. Again, depending on what you want to do, you pick these filters. But this gets us down to 953. Now, what you can do once you have that is select them all. Obviously, you can copy and paste straight from here. But right now we have 24 pages of leads. So nothing we want to mess with by hand, manually at least. So we're going to do select all, and the two options we get are to create labels or to export into a CSV. So this does limit you to 5,000 records per month. So this number here, I already did one sample export earlier, and so I'm down to 4,000, and I'll pull up the example of what it gave me. Actually, excuse me, that's not going to show on my screen right now. So forget that, but nonetheless, this can create Avery mailing labels. You can pick what kind of Avery labels you bought, and it will make that format to print straight from this list, straight to Avery printing labels if you're going to manually do mailers. Or you can export a CSV of mailing addresses and then upload that, to something like a Vistaprint and have them do all the mailers for you. So again, that's a pretty quick rundown of what you can do in CRS data.